right.
Which are so simple and will be ideal for the holidays. Ground pistachios are in the dough, sprinkled on.
All right, 11 o'clock for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, Thurston County. You gonna call the roll?
Yes.
I thought you did.
David Nightingale,
Here.
Chad Sutter, I see you and you're muted.
Here, sorry.
No worries. Looks like Commissioner Klaus or Jennifer Walker as alternative.
Yes, thank you.
Yep, I'm here and I'm also at a conference, so I might have to leave early, but I appreciate Assistant County Manager Walker for being here as well.
Perfect. Bob Isle, Kelly Green, okay. Nicholas Dunning,
Present.
Joan Cathy, David Johnstone, Elaine Clam,
Present.
Laura Wilson, Lisa Harrison,
I'm here.
Jane Appling,
Here.
Greg Schoenbachler, Aaron Robinson,
Morning.
and Christina Colberg. Perfect.
Okay, great.
Did you call my name?
Yes,
Okay.
earlier, and I marked you present when I saw you come in.
All right, thanks.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Okay, what else we got on Zoom here, Jeff?
Sure, I'll introduce the other guests. I think in the room with you, we have Tony Basinger,
Hello.
who's filling in today for Laura Glover because she's at training. We have a presenter also from Public Works, Rose Vandershagen, also in the room there. Let's see. We have Matt Samuelson, also from Public Works. Let's see. And where did he go? Just bounced around. I see Zach Davis Price, also from Public Works. And I see from Jennifer Johnson from Public Health. And I see, let's see, Jessica Goulet, also from Public Health. Oh, Teresa Wallen, I just she popped in there, also from Public Works. Okay, and then other guests, we have, well, did I say Kimberly Graham? I think I may have missed her, but Public Health. The faces keep bouncing around on me. Tracy Onstad Bills from HDR.
Thanks, Jeff. I'm sitting in for Emily. She wasn't able to make it today. Nice to see you.
Dan Weston from Ecology. And Lauren DeRay. Excuse me if I did not pronounce that right. Also from Ecology. And then Ron Jones from the City of Olympia. Is there anybody that I've missed? Okay, there we go.
Great, thank you, Jeff. So we've got an agenda that's been posted and just want to go through the rest of that. If there's anything we need to change, add, delete, modify in any way. If anything from staff or anybody else. Okay, so we should have a motion to approve the agenda then.
I so move.
Thank you, Elaine. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nicholas. All in favor, say aye or give a thumbs up.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. Any opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, great. So we're on with an agenda. So minutes from last time, if you've had a chance to look at those. They were in the packet sent out, and I didn't see anything that needed to be adjusted, but does anybody else have any changes that need to be made to the minutes, draft minutes, I should say? If not, we can have a motion to approve the minutes from last November.
I so move the minutes for the
Great,
November
thank you,
6th
Elaine.
meeting.
Second. Thank you, Elaine. Nicholas, I think, got in again before the other person, so you win twice in a row, Elaine and Nicholas. Great, all in favor, say aye or thumbs up.
Aye.
Okay, great. Any opposed? And abstentions? Great, okay. We are headed to the finish line already. Any public comments, anybody,
I think Lisa
yeah.
had her hand up. I don't know if she had an
Oh.
opposition there.
Okay,
Not at all. I was ineptly trying to give a thumbs up.
you give a wave instead of a thumbs up, probably, huh? Okay, that's great. Thank you. All right, so any people aren't part of the SWAC have any comments they want to make before we do the rest of the agenda? Could be ecology, health department, public citizens, anybody. Okay, I'm not seeing any hands or anything. Okay, all right, well, that was easy. Old business SWAC work plan. So I think there were some maybe adjustment or two there. Jeff, you want to take that?
I think we had this up here because if you recall at the last meeting, we were asking people to consider whether they had anything they might want to add into the work plan. So we wanted to bring it back up to give folks the opportunity to have, if they had other suggestions, wanting to make moves or anything along that line. So it's there. It was distributed. Does anybody have anything else they decided they might want to add, change, subtract related to this? Just as a reminder, we'll be voting, or you will be voting on this at the February meeting. And again, another quick reminder that the January meeting is canceled because it's on New Year's Day. Just want to remind folks about that.
Okay. Great. I had a question under between July and August, there's an asterisk and it says additional MRW facility tour. And is that going with July sometime, just not at the meeting time? Is that the idea with that or something else? I
believe it. Well, it probably would be separate. It'd be at a separate time. Because I think we're looking, well, again, there is some flux as, these things may move potentially depending on what things look like at the time. We're hoping to start the initial kickoff for the solid waste management plan update in July. But as we've talked about before, we're looking to do the Kitsap MRW facility tour around that time. So if we're not ready for this, the solid waste management plan kickoff at that time, that might just take its place. But if we are ready for it, it would be extracurricular. It'd be separate.
So sort of tentatively thinking about on the schedule sometime in there, exactly.
Yes, in the summertime. So it kind of we'll want to poll the membership to see what's a good good date, good time. So as we get closer to that, we'll revisit that.
Great, thank you for that clarification. All right, any other questions on the work plan or anything else anybody have on that? Okay, we don't have to vote on anything at this point. As Jeff said, this isn't really due to go out till February, so that's great. New business. Okay, so is Kara Stewart with us?
Kara couldn't make it. I'm Dan West, and I'm going to be doing the presentation today.
All right, Dan. Well, I used to work at ecology, and Kara's a buddy of mine, so you tell her hello for me, okay?
I will. That's why she didn't come.
Yeah, right. I would have assumed that. I didn't want to say it though. Okay, that's cool. All right. Well, go ahead. Tell us what we got, Dan.
Do you want? I see the slides up. Is that good? I mean, I can. That's.
Yeah, or you can share your screen. I can stop sharing if you'd like.
No, that's fine. I was just gonna because you looks like you're just going through. I'll advance on the through the PDF as we go.
Okay, just let me know when to go to the next slide.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah, thanks for having me to do this presentation. Like I said, Dan Weston, I'm the statewide recycling coordinator with Ecology, implementing the Recycling Reform Act, with apologies to the folks who have possibly seen me do this presentation multiple times now. I'm going to spend about 10, 15 minutes doing just a high level overview of where we're at and then open up for questions as long as you'll have me. There's just too much in the law to cover everything. It was an 80-page law, and we're still pretty early in the process, so we're just going to keep it high level for now, and then there's a couple sort of action items I'll focus on a little more for the purposes of this conversation. We've also hosted a couple longer form webinars and had extensive Q&A sessions where we've got a recording of that meeting and a long Q&A document. So if you're interested in more, there are additional resources available. Um, and yeah, I think with that I'll drop slides. I'll share slides if you don't know, or not slides, links to those documents in the chat after we're done here. And you can distribute those afterwards. You can go to the next slide. So, just for a bit of context, since I know folks have varying levels of familiarity with the law, the Recycling Reform Act was passed by the legislature during this past session. It's similar to the e-cycle program or paint care. It'll establish an extended producer responsibility where producers must take responsibility for the end of life management of their products. This program is focused on packaging and paper products that are sold to Washington consumers. It does not include business to business or commercial transactions. The program will cover residential recycling programs and government provided public place recycling. It does not cover any sort of ICI or industrial, commercial, or institutional recycling programs. Next slide. For the presentation, I'll just walk you basically through this graphic of the different key participants and roles, and as I explain how the program will work. So starting in the top left of the graphic, the producers of covered packaging and paper products must join a producer responsibility organization or PRO, and then pay annual fees that will fund most of the state's residential recycling system. Next slide. So when you think of producers, your first thought might go to packaged goods at the grocery store, but this law will require producers of all consumer products to participate in the program. So everything at your hardware stores, the electronics store, your shoe stores, all of that packaging and the paper products are covered. And then from the states that have passed similar EPRs that are ahead of us in implementation, we're hearing that over 2,800 producers are registering for their program. So we expect about that same number of producers to register in Washington. Next slide. Next up, we have the Producer Responsibility Organization, or PRO, in the upper middle. The PRO is a nonprofit that uses producer fees to pay for existing, improved, and expanded residential recycling service. The PRO will have to develop and implement a program plan, reimburse service providers for their costs, cover Ecology's implementation costs, and fund a reuse grant program, and a myriad of other things. The PRO plays a very large role in the program. They don't have to register with Ecology until March 1st of next year. Once we have a PRO in place, they'll be able to answer more questions and provide insight into how the program will operate. The PRO of record in the other states that are ahead of us with their laws is Circular Action Alliance, or CAA. They've also indicated their intent to operate as the PRO in Washington and have set up a producer registration system on their website. I attended a webinar yesterday where they were talking through, their just overall program for the whole nation, for the states that they're involved with. And they announced that they'd already had over 1,300 producers register for the state of Washington in advance of the January 1st producer deadline registration. So we can't say that they will be the PRO, but they're the one we know of, and they're the ones who are actively recruiting producers to register with them. And then next in the upper right corner, we have Ecology, who will oversee the startup of the program, which includes the completion of several studies. The rulemaking process, the registration of service providers and the pro, and approval of the program plan will also be responsible for oversight and enforcement of the eventual program. Next slide. Here's a visual representation of many of the key tasks and due dates that we have for Ecology, the Advisory Council, the Pro, and service providers. I'm not going to read through them all, just to highlight a few of the near-term tasks, specifically for Ecology. We've begun work on 4 studies, including one that models and gathers community input on a recycling refund system, also known as a deposit return or a bottle bill. That draft is near that's a 2-phase. The first phase of that report is due January 1st, so January 2nd, since it's a holiday to the legislature. That one was sent out to our email list for public review in October, and then the next phase of that report will be going on throughout most of next year, due January 1st of the following year. We're in the final stages of hiring a consultant to help create a statewide recycling list and perform 2 needs assessments. We should be able to announce that consultant hopefully within the next week or so. Ideally, we'll see when we actually get the contract signed and can make that formal announcement. But it's imminent. And then the statewide list is due in October 1st, by October 1st of next year. And then the preliminary needs assessment is due December 31st of next year. And then the last thing I'll mention for Ecology stuff upcoming is that we plan to start the rulemaking process early next year. We're kind of getting started on the internal, bureaucratic paperwork stuff right now. We're in earnest in January. And then there's a couple-month process, and the CR 101 should probably go out in March or April. And then, formal rulemaking meetings starting soon after. Next slide. To stay up to date on all things RRA, sign up for our mailing list. A lot of this work is just getting started, and it'll be going on for 4.5 years before the program even starts. This email list on the left, if you have your phone, to scan the QR code, that'll be our primary means of sharing information. And then the QR code on the right just goes to our website, where we'll share, other information and provide updates on there. And I can also put links in the chat if you don't have a phone. Next slide. All right, going high up in the upper right corner, the RRA provides for an advisory council to review and provide comments to the Pro and to Ecology on all startup and implementation efforts. Go to the next slide. We did an application period for the advisory council in October. We're in the very final stages of selecting members. We expect to make that announcement next week. Members who were selected were notified earlier this week, and we're just waiting for confirmation from the final few. And then we'll send that out to that email list and post it on our website next week. For information about the advisory council, Ecology must establish it by January of 2026. We anticipate the meeting starting soon after, maybe February, roughly, TBD. We're currently working through the contracting process to hire a third-party facilitator for that group, and we'll probably, depending on the timeline for that contract as well, announcing the membership and the third-party facilitator soon. And then for duties, I'm not going to read through that whole list, but the council will be responsible for consulting, reviewing, commenting, and making recommendations on most elements of the program. Next slide. Going down to the bottom row of this graphic, starting with the residents, nearly 500,000 residents will receive access to curbside recycling as a result of the RRA, and all residents will see reduced costs for their recycling service. There'll also be a statewide, a consistent statewide list of materials to hopefully reduce confusion about which materials are recyclable. The law also includes requirements for sending materials to responsible end markets, which will hopefully instill trust that the materials being placed in your bin are actually getting recycled. And then that includes a responsible end market certification that begins in 2031. And then the bottom middle, if you want to go to the next slide, are service providers. I'll dig a little deeper into them. There are likely some, I mean, I saw from the list, there are service providers in the room. This will be one of the first obligations of the law that apply to you. Service providers are the entities that provide the covered services for covered materials to the covered entities, which are single and multifamily homes um, and public place receptacles as well. So with service providers, just something to keep in mind, it's more than just, your curbside haulers and your MRFs that will qualify as service providers. The government entities are also considered service providers, regardless of whether they provide the service themselves, contract for service, or otherwise arrange for service. Administrative costs, including education and outreach, are also eligible for reimbursement. Um, and then in addition to recycling services, their reuse and refill systems are eligible to be covered and are considered service providers. As far as the obligations for service providers on the right, any service provider that intends to seek reimbursement needs to register with Ecology by January 31st of next year of 2026. If you're not sure whether you qualify as a service provider, reach out to us, now, because that deadline is imminent, and you'll need to get in there and register in the month of January. The pro will then work with the registered service providers on the program startup and implementation over the next several years. The in starting in 2030, then the service providers will submit invoices to the pro for their eligible costs. They'll receive at least 50% of their costs reimbursed in 2030, at least 75% reimbursed in 2031, and then 90% of their costs reimbursed in 2032 and after. Service providers will have to meet performance standards specified in the approved plan, and they must ensure that materials are going to those responsible end markets. They must provide documentation to the pro regarding the materials they manage, and they must display their prices on customer bills minus the amount that was reimbursed to the pro. And I saw that Ron's on the call, and I think we've worked out a way for you to be able to display that cost on your bill without having to do like an itemized you know subtraction amount. So we're working through how to best display that. But again, we have several years before that will need to actually happen. And then the next slide. So for the service provider registration, since this is coming up and several of you will have to do this, the online registration form is currently under development. We're expecting to have it available by the first week of January. It's currently undergoing testing, and we're working out the kinks before we can get that published. As part of the registration process, all the service providers will be asked to identify the types of services they provide, how many tons they manage, and the amount they build for their services. That information is then to be broken down by the service area and by the covered entity type. The information from this first round of registration will be helpful for informing the preliminary needs assessment. There'll be a separate reporting element that only applies to MRFs. MRFs will be required to report inbound tonnages, information about contamination, compliance with permits, and other labor metrics like wages, unions, and workforce demographics. And then next slide. So that's generally it. It's a lot of stuff. If you're interested and you want to stay informed or participate, there are lots of things coming that you can do. I mentioned many of them, but attend our advisory council meetings. If you're a service provider, register by January. There'll be, in addition to that registration system, that as part of the needs assessment, there's going to be a comprehensive, data and information gathering element that needs to happen early next year, like throughout kind of the spring. We'll be doing a lot of like information requests and sending out this like survey implement for you to populate with information about your program to identify current services provided and not provided, if you will, so we can know where the needs are and what needs will need to be met under the program. Over the next year, we'll have lots of things being put out for public comment, like our statewide list, the needs assessment, the rulemaking, and then eventually the program plan in a couple years. Another element that's relevant to some of you all is that there will to incorporate the RRA, there'll be a comprehensive solid waste management plan amendment that we develop that will sort of serve as hopefully a plug and play, but we'll need help developing that template if anyone's involved in that. That's also a couple years out. And then, like I said, sign up for the email list for any other updates. You can go to the next slide, and I put that up there one more time. Or that's our team email address. If you want to reach out to us there, you can also email me specifically, especially if it's like service provider related. It'd be best just to email me directly with any questions, and then happy to take questions here, and happy to come back any other time if there are additional questions. That's it.
Great. That's for me, this is really exciting news. And on the cutting edge of recycling in the country. So I want to open up for questions. Of course, I always have some, but I want to let other people go first. So I see some hands up. Who's there on top? To Alan?
It looks like Chad Sutter was first, but he
Okay.
put his hand down.
All right. Go ahead,
Whoever
Chad.
wants to go first.
Go ahead, Chad.
Okay, sorry, just a couple of questions. I don't want to be the first one either because I know that I'm gonna have I know I'm gonna have some follow-up questions after after everybody else kind of talks. But so we have I'm obviously in the scrap metal side of the business, and there's some commodities that are going to be exposed to this particular bill, but we haven't seen we haven't gotten like good notification in our industry or to our sector about registering for these things. And so I was just wondering like how I guess how we can better communicate, because we obviously handle a lot of UBC items and things like that. So
So knowing a little bit about what you do, Sutter Metals, I assume, based on your last name.
yeah.
And having driven by one of your operations near the ecology building for many years.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's right there, right on the corner there. There is an exemption for scrap metal businesses, and I can share that language. I don't know if you like looking at RCW, if you just want to take my word for it, but there is an exemption for scrap metal. If you hold a current scrap metal license under RCW 19-290-010, which I imagine you do, and if you're receiving material like from a MRF or like from a Dropbox, it'll be the MRF or the Dropbox that is the service provider there. If you were to accept public drop off at those locations for aluminum cans, those elements may come into the program. So I don't know. I don't know if you do that or not. So you may be a service provider, but you might not. You might be exempt.
Yeah, most of the processors in our space are receiving those at drop off, and so we're and there's quite a bit of challenges like California is obviously a rebate market, and they have
Right.
they have 120% recycling rate of all their UBC because of it, and so there's some challenges there, right? And then I guess my last question is you had notated that this was going to be a benefit to the ratepayer. So now I'm going to just shift a little bit to the ratepayers. But is there an intrinsic inflation cost associated here from the producers? I mean, like, do we actually have a real study done to know how it's truly going to impact ratepayers, or has that been conducted yet?
Are you thinking about the idea that the producers will just, if they're paying into the system, they'll just pass the costs on to the customers? Is that the type of inflation you're imagining, or are you actually thinking that the actual cost to provide recycling might be inflated because of that?
I think it could be twofold, which I think that there could be an intrinsic cost to the service providers as well as the producers. They're going to pass those costs along to the consumers, and really, it's not going to be a net positive for the ratepayer. I don't know. I'm asking the question if that study's kind of been done and evaluated.
Yeah, I mean, like yes, and there are some, varying opinions out there depending on, which how, friendly the study was done on for each entity, of course. But I think overall the belief from studies and from other countries that have EPR, Europe has had EPR, Canada has had EPR for years. Um, Other states have had EPR programs uh, for specific products that other states do not. Like there aren't federal EPR programs. And from what we've generally seen is that the costs, the producers, not that they don't pass the costs on, but that the costs are fractional. If you think about the amount of money that's going into this, like per item, it would be fractions of a penny, like per item, like per aluminum can. It's not going to be very much money per item. So they're not going, and then if you compare states or in Canada, they've compared um, different provinces that do or do not have EPR, and generally they're not seeing inflated costs. Like they're not going to charge um, residents of BC more than they charge everybody else. So there is like a flattening of costs that kind of happen on the producer side. I'm not naive to think that the producers are not going to like try to recoup their costs. Like that's, I'm not saying it won't go up, but it's a marginal amount for these multi-billion dollar multinational companies, which is what a lot of them are. And
Yeah,
they're paying the bulk of the fees.
yeah, I just worry about ratepayers and finding solutions to make sure that, like, obviously the cost of living is already so high, and
Right.
and so just trying to be concerned about that and how we can help provide, the best solutions to mitigate those things. So,
So
I,
that, yeah, I mean, that part of the answer was more about if the producers were to pass the cost on the ratepayer. The part about displaying the cost savings on the bill. There were questions during the bill development, which were, from local government. It's like, rightfully so, saying if I, as a city or county, if I'm charging ratepayers in their bill, and now instead of charging the rate, I'm getting the money from a third party, can I still collect that money and then use it for other things? Can I fund our HHW facility with that money? Because I'm still getting the money, and the idea is the requirement is you can't just divert the money that's being paid by the ratepayers to other things. You have to let the ratepayer keep the money. So the putting that requirement on the bill is to say you were previously charged $10 a month for recycling, like in the lead up time to this. So it'll if you guys don't have embedded rates, if you show on the bill it costs $10 a month for your recycling. Now it's going to show you were charged $1 a month for your recycling. So you have to inform the customer that you have it's at least 90% reimbursement in 2032. So it's not like it's likely not going to be 100%. It's not going to be free. Not that it was ever free, but it's not going to be free recycling, but it's going to show $9 of your recycling uh, fee or charge was paid by this producer responsibility organization. So that's how you truly keep the savings with the ratepayer.
No, I really appreciate you answering my questions, and I don't want to take up more of your time because you have so many. But I think that there will be challenges for the scrap processors on that side, and I'd love to be able to work with you in developing and easing some of those challenges if you have time. So thank you so
Yeah,
much for
no,
answering.
we'll follow up afterwards about the scrap metal exemption and whether you should register in as a service provider. So let's follow up.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Who's next?
Yep, Aaron, go ahead.
Yeah, the pro that everybody has to register for or with, could you give me the name of them again?
The pro and that's for the producers to register. The producer companies is Circular Action Alliance.
Okay.
And they have a website and stuff where they point people to. The service providers need to register with Ecology, just to be clear, in case that wasn't clear. So producers register with the pro, service providers register with Ecology.
And then is it ecology that's going to set the standards for, like you were mentioning, like drop boxes and things for the community? and that the provider is going to get like 50% reimbursement, then 75%, then 100%?
Yeah, I mean, so it'll be an iterative process where ecology is doing this process right now where we're developing a statewide list. So at your Dropbox, there will be a list that we put out, and it'll go through, review, and we'd like all your, input on what's collected in those boxes. And then once you get to 2030, it'll be expected that to be reimbursed, you'll need to, you'll need to meet the parameters that have been set. So if you have a Dropbox, you'll need to provide drop-off service for these items. If you're a curbside collector, there'll be a curbside list that says these are the items that you're expected to pick up in your curbside program, and you'll be required to do that to be reimbursed. So we'll put that out. Then the pro in 2028, after rulemaking is done, has to create a program plan. And based on the information that's been supplied to them, they will develop a program plan that lays out um, everything that's been decided up until that point, through the report making and the rule making process. And then ecology has to approve that plan. So if at end so it goes back and forth, right? Like who's doing what when. And by the end, if ecology approves of that program, that final program plan, then yeah, and ideally we will and then that will be those will then be the standards that are out to everyone, if that makes sense. Like, we do some research, uh, y- through collecting the information, needs assessment. The pro does a plan, ecology approves, and then it rolls out through implementation phase.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, that is the Department of Ecology that's going to set the acceptance criteria for the materials going into the bin.
Yeah, I would generally say that, through with a consultant and with public input. We're not gonna, you know, make decisions, I don't think, that are, you know, wildly outside of the current system. Like I think we kind of expect, and TBD, like there will be, especially for like rural areas, there will be more money available to the system. So in places where, I was talking to someone from a rural county in central Washington where at their drop-off site, they currently only have four roll-off bins, right? Just the high value commodities at those rural drop-off sites. And it makes sense to do that because, like, who's going to pay to have 12 roll-off bins at a rural drop-off area? But in the future, the producer will pay for that.
But
So
Aaron, are you trying to say that that could be potentially infringing on the UCC setting the rates in? Is that what you're trying to get at?
No, no, not at all. I'm just trying to figure out who's setting the acceptance criteria and kind of the parameters, which again, they will come up with as this moves along, I'm sure. But then,
generally, it's ecology, setting it up and then approving the final program plan. But it will be the pro kind of laying it out in their program plan what is to be accepted. But it's not like they have the authority to do everything.
So
It's all
Dan, let
there's
me see if I
oversight
can
over everything. Yeah.
help clarify. So in the law, in the statute, there are certain goals established for percentage of recycling and that sort of thing.
There aren't, there aren't goals in the law, but there are performance standards must be established throughout the process. So each
Okay, and so
material,
those standards get established by certain recovery rates and that sort of thing. And
correct.
then the pro is then responsible for meeting those standards that have been established. And then they went work in the communities and with the service providers and the counties to figure out how to make that happen in Washington.
Correct. So if you in those, that's why they will be incentivized if there's a, X% recycling rate for a material. They will then be, on the hook for meeting that performance standard. So if there's a reason why they're failing, like maybe that means they need to add a new drop-off location in a county because maybe it's a county where there's currently two and they say we actually need three, like the driving distances are too far. Or maybe they'll say it's actually an education and outreach, you know, problem where like our residents aren't being educated enough on this. So then the pro would be obligated to fund additional education and outreach to try to boost those rates. So there's it's not like prescriptive like that right now in the law on, how that would go, how that would happen, but it is, required that they meet those performance standards, which are set, the rates themselves will be set, through their program plan with ecology approval.
Great.
Thank you.
And Jessica's been patiently waiting, I think, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're up,
Okay.
Jessica.
Hello. My questions are kind of different, and I also want to be mindful of people's times, and I think I'd love to join the committee to learn more about this and figure out how to get involved as just like a citizen. And so apologies if you already talked about this. It's just kind of loud in the office. I understand that recycling and what's acceptable varies by counties. And so I don't even understand what exactly like people are going to be recycling now that is different, and how the issue of like in Thurston County you can't recycle frozen freezer boxes like microwavable meals, but in Pierce County you can. And so there's like those issues that are going on, but then we're going to throw on top of that now there's all these other things that we can recycle, but we don't even do recycling correctly now with the education that is out there. So just kind of curious, like game plan, what that looks like.
I mean, I think what you just did is like highlight why this is why this has happened is, that type of inconsistency and confusion over what can be recycled in different places. And there are very valid reasons why that system has come to be the way it is. It's, with related to costs or technology, which MRF you send to. So if you're talking about, you know, certain items like freezer boxes, or the hot item right now is paper and plastic cups, because there's a big announcement that's been going around the state about paper and plastic cup acceptance. So that inconsistency is super confusing for residents, and it leads to, in my opinion, high contamination rates, distrust in the system, and a lack of confidence that anything's actually being recycled. It's like it doesn't matter if I throw it in my, well, everything in my recycling bin just goes to the garbage anyway. That is a pervasive thought with residents, and part of that is because, like, why would an item be recyclable in Pierce County and not Thurston County? So I think those questions are why we've gotten to the point where we are, where we've had, plus the market collapse in 2018, like all of that combined has sort of led to this, like, I don't know. The system is like, I always say, it's like it's good, but it could be better. So harmonizing the system across the state has been a goal for many people for many years. We did the whole crop process a couple years ago, trying to bring, more and harmony to the, like, voluntary harmonization to the materials list. So to answer the question, is there is going to be an intensive process on the statewide list through this third party, consultant and ecology, to gather information about what is truly recycled, what materials are actually being produced at the back end by the MRF that have, responsible end markets. And if they if they don't do that, they shouldn't be on the list. Like, that's ultimately what we're trying to decide here, is what materials really should be on the list. And what's going to happen is the valid reasons, which is like maybe these two MRFs have different technology. So one has like a, state of the art optical sorters, another one does not. So how do you reconcile those two things? It is possible, based on the results, that a jurisdiction like Seattle might have to take materials off their list because it's not a material that can be recycled statewide by every hauler in MRF, and so we'll need to drop some materials. There might be other, materials where they say, if this one MRF had better tech, we could accept it here. So there's an infrastructure investment element to the law. So through the needs assessment and through that infrastructure investment, they could say, The pro is going to fund a new optical sorter at that MRF so they can recycle that type of plastic or polypropylene that they couldn't before, to try to bring a little bit of balance to the system and actually make it so there is true harmony, not just a harmonized list, but actually harmonized recycling of those materials. So I don't know if that really answered your question the way you wanted to, but that's it's kind of how the system is meant to work, like how the program is meant to work to solve those those issues and eliminate some of that confusion.
So did he answer your question, Jessica?
I think yes, that's a fantastic start, and I want to learn more. And so, if I was to sign up for the email notifications with that QR code, is that how I could attend more meetings and answer or get more questions answered?
To 100% sign up, because what we'll do is we'll send out prompts like, here's when the next advisory council meeting or the next rulemaking meeting is going to be. We'll put it on our website as well. So, if you really want to be involved, do the email list, like check our, bookmark our website and look for those things. But, we're doing regular updates on, here's when things are happening and when.
Awesome, thank you.
Let me put a little more context so people maybe understand a little more about what the maybe not obvious benefits are to extended producer responsibility, the EPR, which is what this system. And that is mentioned already as contamination, whether it's with food or something, and mixing things together in a single stream, that tends to promote contamination. And there's not that many years ago, China decided, because we were sending so much contaminated stuff to them, they just said, we're closing our recycling markets to a lot of this stuff. A big shock to our system. So this is a way to go upstream to the people making this stuff, to make it, first, they don't use as much materials because then they don't have to recycle as much. But also, if you're not contaminating things to the point where they are unusable and not recyclable anymore, there's a big energy savings typically with reprocessing existing materials for reuse or recycling, as opposed to having virgin materials mined or whatever to produce. And so that directly relates then to, in most parts of the country, and if the mill isn't in the Northwest where we have hydropower, there's a lot of coal being burned. And so you actually have a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So there's other things in the system here that are beneficial to society. And the point where the producers are making it, they're making a profit. So the idea is they should be part of the solution in managing their products at the end of life. And so that's sort of the system look at the philosophy maybe behind part of what's motivating this kind of law being passed across the country. I guess one more thing, and Dan, you might be aware of this, but about 2 weeks ago, there was a book came out called Producer Responsibility in Practice. And that's anybody who's interested in sort of the systems thinking and that sort of stuff. You can go online and look for that. And I don't get paid for saying that, but I got a copy. So anyway, what else? Any other questions anybody has? Raise your hand or just say something.
Go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of follow up on Jessica's question and Dave, your explanation too, but I'm not really seeing where this, I mean, Dan, you're saying that this will help make more uniform or harmonize the recyclers in what they can handle or what they choose to handle. But how is this putting pressure on producers, to change the materials that they're packaging in? If there's nothing that says you have to recycle 95% of plastics, if there's nothing like that, why would producers not continue that, the level of plastic packaging they do now?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'd say there are two hooks to get them to do that. One is there will be performance targets. There will be something that says, it'll be item specific, because it's not helpful to set an unrealistic goal. If you've got plastics, an item that's currently has a 5% recycling rate, it doesn't make sense to say we're going to do a 90% recycling rate. It's not realistic. So there will be performance targets that are set by material. So that will be the first thing. So the idea will be, you need to get that material into the system, which means either putting it on the list or not. If you're setting a recycling rate for an item, it should be on the list. So then it'll get in the system, the tech and the better information to residents, better less contamination, and then establishing markets. Like as an example, there is I've seen there is a new plastics recycler coming online in Oregon, and it seems like directly as a result of Oregon's EPR law, which their law actually went into effect over the summer. So if those materials are being collected and they're being sorted better and you get a better product, it incentivizes the end users to buy that material and actually recycle it. So that's the first part, is actually getting the material through the system and actually getting it recycled with with
Who puts it on the list?
for Washington, it'll be ecology, essentially. Ecology, and through the whole process with public input, and then the producer will produce a program plan that has the final list. But it's ecology doing the work to set the list.
Okay.
And then on the upstream side, there is an element in the law, and it's not called this in the law, but it's known as eco-modulation, which is if you are a producer paying the pro, all this money gets collected into a big pool that then gets distributed to the service provider. So the producers paying money into the system pay according to how much material they produce. It's calculated by tonnage. So, the big producers pay more than the small. So that part makes sense. But there's also eco-modulation, which goes into if your packaging material that you produce is a number of things. If it's more recyclable, if it's more reusable, if it's less toxic, like there's a number of elements in the law. If you produce those types of materials, you pay less per ton, essentially, than the producers who put their materials in packaging that is not recyclable or not reusable or more toxic. So that is
That's the
that is
lever.
the
Yeah.
upstream lever to try to get them. If you do better, if you use better materials, you will pay less into our system.
Okay.
So there's an upstream element and a downstream element to actually get it recycled.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Anybody else have a question that Dan can answer?
Question.
Yeah.
My name is Tracy Wood. I'm representing the city of Yelm, a council member there.
Right.
I'm curious, you mentioned something about a plastics recycling company in Oregon that he believes was established due to their regulations that they've created. I'm curious if you can tell us how you came to the conclusion that that's the reason that this company, that it wasn't in fact because there was an opportunity for a business to make, to get established and make some revenue. I'm curious how you connected the two, that Oregon's new regulation is what created this. Because as you said, there's all kinds of different recycling organizations throughout our state that take different types of recycling products. But once again, you mentioned just there that this new company was developed that's taking these new plastic products in Oregon, and you believe that it was due to their regulation. I'm curious what makes you believe that, I guess is my question.
I can send you an article. I believe the company itself said that. There's this group called the Polypropylene Recycling Coalition, and that's not the company. That's an industry association trying to push polypropylene recycling. And for folks in that have been involved in this, polypropylene is an item that is being pushed by the industry to be recycled. And in the Pacific Northwest specifically, we have not had great outlets for polypropylene. In the East Coast, they have more polypropylene recycling facilities. They get a slightly higher cost for selling that to the recyclers there. We have to ship our polypropylene quite a long distance. So it's been this like marginal material that, sour cream containers and, things like some plastic cups and dairy items that some folks put on their list and others do not, because it's not quite it's not a moneymaker here. And I believe the article, it's Denton Plastics, they that through that coalition, the work that they've done to try to advance polypropylene recycling have cited that because Oregon is building out their system, and California also has an EPR for packaging law. I will concede that in the absence of EPR, maybe that polypropylene recycling coalition might have brought a polypropylene recycler to the region anyway. But I believe that coalition and the company cited Oregon's law and just the growth of recycling as the reason why uh, they felt confident enough to build that facility, because you wouldn't build the facility if you weren't confident that you were going to have like a clean, stable, sufficient feedstock. You need enough material to warrant building that. So that's how I came to that conclusion. So uh, that's what I know. I read an article, I guess is what I would say for how I came to
So
know that.
I think we can agree that when the supply reaches the point where this is a necessity and it becomes profitable, I don't believe it would take a regulation or a rule or a law in order for people to, business people in our state to see an opportunity and take advantage of that. I just think that as you mentioned, at this point, it's not profitable, so there isn't really a demand. So I question forcing something that isn't profitable onto people and expecting them to want to, jump in and be a part of that, as far as a business sense goes. So
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
sounds
gonna
like it's going
speak
to happen
for.
regardless once we get to the point where the demand's there, that we have enough of a need for this type of recycling in our region to actually for that to happen. And when that happens, I mean, who knows it? Maybe even I might jump in and invest in something like that if it's, if the demand is actually there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can't, I'm not going to challenge your economic beliefs, but the recycling system as existed, polypropylene has not had a market that could produce a company that's willing to build a plant in the region and support a recycling system specifically for polypropylene up to this point. I can't, you know, speak to the hypothetical of if that company would have come in the absence of this system, but the company itself cited the laws as the motivator
Might have
for
been a triggering
bringing it
factor
in.
about that. Jeff, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I know this has been a nice spirited discussion, but we still have two more presentations and we're an hour in. Can we move on? I hate to cut it short, but I want to make sure I give the other two sufficient time
Yeah,
to.
I asked Rose, she only needs 10 minutes, and I was thinking that capital facilities doesn't have a lot. I mean, do you have a
Yeah,
lot?
maybe 5 to 10 for that. Okay.
Okay.
I just want to do a time check just for
Yeah, good.
reality.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Appreciate that. Jessica, did you have something else you wanted to add here?
Just real quick, this seems like the right group of people who'd be interested in this. A couple months ago, I took a class through Bennington College. I audited it, and it was called Beyond Plastic Pollution, and it's led by a former EPA gal. And so if anyone's interested, I wish there was a chat. I could drop the link in it. But super interesting class. It's a couple weeks. Looks like the next one starts in February. To learn all about the plastic pollution life cycle, who's producing it. They talk about EPR, who's pushing for recycling. And I learned a lot, and so I would highly recommend it. And they just came out with a book as well called The Problem with Plastic that I just ordered. And I can't speak highly enough about this class. So check it out if that sounds like something you're interested in. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Any from anybody else before we close this discussion? Okay, great.
Thanks all.
All right, yeah, thank you, Dan, and say hi to Kara for me, even though she didn't want to be here.
Will do.
All right, so Rose, you're up.
Okay, well, for those of you who I haven't met in person, I'll just do a quick intro. I have worked for Public Works since April 21st. And I am leading the finance and procurement work group. Love it. Love working with Jeff. He's a great solid waste guy over there, and I've had a good time getting to know everyone. So I look forward to giving you your budget presentation. I know you missed out last year. We're still having some issues with our finance system, but we're ready to give you what we've got right now. So we'll start out with just an overview. Oh, I wanted to just remind everyone, in case you possibly forgot, our rate increases are going to go in effect on January 1st. And I'll talk a little bit about how we came up with our revenue estimates based on those increases and projected growth rates when we get to the revenue slide.
And those were approved this
Yes.
week, right?
Yes, sir. Mhm. Okay, so there are three funds that feed into the solid waste as a whole. There, 4030 is the maintenance and operations fund. Fund 4040 is the post-closure reserve expenses for the landfill, and 4050 is our capital project fund. And as I said, you can see from 23 on the right over to 27 on the left that the revenues are projected to increase. Of course, expenses will as well. But some of the assumptions we use when we develop the revenue budget for the Rainier Dropbox, there's a 12% fee increase in 2026 and a 10% in 2027. And a 2% growth factor is what we used. And for Rochester, their 12% fee increase, 10% in 27, and we didn't assume any growth factor on that one. And for the transfer station, 11% fee increase in 26, 10% in 27, and a 2% growth factor. Which is broken out a little bit better on this slide than the previous slide. Sorry, but should have moved forward a little sooner. And you can see how the revenue is broken down, starting with the actuals for 23 and 24. We're almost done with 2025, obviously, but we have our 2025 budget numbers in there, and then the 26 and 27 proposed numbers. So from 23 up through 27, we range from 30 to almost 40 million in total revenue. 91% of the 2025 budget is tipping fees at the work. That's the biggest piece by far. 4% for yard waste. We are projecting an increase in that area, but that's just based on the fee increase. Actual quantities are expected to be flat or go down. So, and then the 3% for the drop boxes in Hazel House as a percent of the total, that's what those represent. Just kind of a slow and steady increase across those. Hazel House is kind of holding, we projected it to hold about the same. And then, of course, we have some grants from Department of Ecology, and we intend to continue pursuing any grant opportunities that we can. And this slide is showing what the allocation is between people who haul their own trash to our transfer station versus the commercial haulers. It has held about the same. When I looked at the notes from the previous presentation, about 2/3 commercial versus 1/3 self-haul. And that's basically holding steady. We do anticipate that the oh, is that okay?
Yeah, that's weird. Okay.
Okay.
Here, go ahead. Can you still hear us?
You guys still hear me? Okay. Okay. So 2025 year to date through October, that's through October actual invoices received. I confirmed that with our accountant that that's not what we expect, it's actuals. So we're probably going to be a little bit over for 2025 for the year compared to 2024 for the self-hauling revenue, and maybe a little under on the commercial. We'll see how that plays out. And then we can talk a little bit about how our categories of expenditures are looking. You can see the percents change a little bit for some of the categories as you go across, but overall, I think they're sort of kind of holding steady. Capital projects, we anticipate having, Matt's going to talk a little bit more about the capital budget, but we do have a couple big projects that are ramping up. The work redesign is a big one, and we have the compactor project, that one's actually finishing up. So some that are big numbers that are gonna be happening in the near future and some that are just now wrapping up. The majority of our expenses are over 65% are for contracted operations. Such as Republic and the big haulers that come in. And we're going to adjust our, you can see that for 26 and 27, the proposed budget numbers are the same. We're gonna revisit that because there's a 2.5% to 3% CPI increase that we anticipate. That will change those numbers a little bit. We're gonna take a look at that in the first quarter of 2026 and do some expense adjustments in the budget at that point. Community and education outreach, that includes the public health funding for their piece and helping us to offer compliance and enforcement activities for solid waste. The post-closure, that budget is holding pretty steady. We usually don't spend as much as we budget, helping to kind of buffer with the ending fund balance, holding that unspent money. This is a slide that's showing how the 2025 budget breaks out by percents for the different categories of expenses. Compared to when we looked at this slide, when we got the presentation in 2023, these percents are actually very similar. The indirect expense is the only difference. That is the public health piece. So that's the amount that they bill solid waste for their services that they're providing for us. Okay. And this is the contractor consultant breakdown. This is the professional service fees that you can see that the totals were on the previous slide. This is the biggest percentage of our budget for each operational area. The transfer station operation is the most significant driver, of course. And this is what I was referring to earlier when I was talking about the new contract is going to have a minimum of 2.5% and a maximum of a 3% increase. So once we have that final number, we will do in the budget amendment an adjustment to those expenses because they're definitely going to go up. Yard waste, like I said, revenues anticipated to be less than expenditures actually in 2026 when you can compare revenue and expenses for that type of expense, and higher in 2027, but that's only because of the rate increase. We did not factor in any increased volume. General consulting and planning, that line is going to include the rate review dollars that we spend on that, community outreach programs, public site cleanup, community litter, etc. And the October 2025 column year to date, that's actual expenses incurred, not just what we've paid, invoiced and paid through October, as it says in the asterisk at the bottom. And this is the CIP table that the Matt Samuelson, our planner, and capital projects, Dev and finance have put together for 26 through 31. 2020, you'll see a big jump on 2027 and 2028 for that work reconfiguration. That's when that is going to be really getting busy. And as that one kind of tapers off and we wrap that one up, we'll do that. We'll be doing the transfer station facility at the second location. So, we'll adjust these as we go along based on cash flow and how we're doing. But that's the overall plan. And for our 6-year financial plan, you can see a slow and steady increase in our projected ending fund balance, and how the capital projects fits into that every year activity and what would be over or short based on mostly because of how much movement we have in our capital project budget. Any questions?
Anybody have questions for Rose? Comments, anything?
That's a lot of information. Is there any chance of getting a hard copy of this?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Could we go back to the revenue breakdown? I think it was the second slide. Yeah, right there. So, so I'm supposed to be the business representative here generally, and I'm looking at the Hazo House number, $18,000 about per year. That, as my understanding, is just the fees that are paid by small quantity generators, small businesses
Yes.
typically.
Yes.
And comparing that to the 39 million, almost $40 million, depending on which, 26, 27, that's in the dust.
Yes.
It's insignificant. However, for small businesses, any charge you make for doing the right thing is a disincentive. And so I'm going to advocate, as I've mentioned before, for eliminating that because those small businesses are already paying their solid waste fees, just like the households. The households get the service for free. And I think it's not unreasonable to just remove that barrier from small businesses to doing the right thing and getting that. And especially like lithium-ion batteries, which are causing all kinds of problems all over the country. If we get more lithium-ion batteries only from businesses that don't have to pay a fee for it, that I think would be a good safety thing for the system as well. So anyway, I'm not sure exactly how to affect that. Probably public health needs to be talking to public works, but Yakima County has been offering free service to their small businesses for decades and haven't had a problem with it. And it was initially a lot of people charged that for two things. One, well, businesses need to pay for services, but I would say they're already paying for it. And the other thing is, well, we don't want to, advantage one business or another. Well, life's not fair. Big businesses can cover their own expenses for those kind of things. If they're generating that much hazardous waste, probably they ought to be paying for it. So anyway, I just want to put that out there, and I'll let the health department and Jeff and folks, maybe noodle that a little bit around. But I'm just looking at numbers, and it's like, I have a degree in business, and I have a small business, and it's like, it seems like the barrier that is presented here is significant to small businesses, and the advantage of having them do the right thing with their waste would be significantly positive in the scheme of the budget here. $18,000 moving to another place or a rate away from the revenues, it's not going to move the needle on these big numbers at all.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know if Jeff, you want to, off the top of your head, say something. Go ahead.
Yeah, so actually, this would probably be a valid topic during the solid waste management planning process that's coming up this coming year. That'd probably be a good opportunity to have that discussion. I know one of the things that we're looking at potentially doing, to date, we've had the solid waste management plan has been a separate, distinct item from the hazardous waste management plan, which I know we're just trying to finish up on. I think there's only two jurisdictions in the state of Washington that have them separate. And I think all the rest have their kind of placed together. I think one of the thoughts would be, is an opportunity this next round with the hazardous waste plan just being freshly completed to maybe, blend those two together in this upcoming cycle. So again, I think it's be a valid conversation piece during the planning process, because obviously there's that thought would need to be vetted a bit. So that's kind of what I'm thinking and recommending.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other comments on my comment? Anybody think it's a good or a bad idea, or don't care, or what? Anything? What anybody else feel about this?
Seems like some low-hanging fruit there.
I think so, but okay, great. All right, let's go on then. Matt, you with us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent. Yeah, we'll kind of rip through the presentation everybody has in their packet, and it's pretty self-explanatory. So if you want to jump to the next slide, thank you. This again is just the overall timeline and the list of the major projects that we're working on. And the difference here is it shows the the rough dollars where we have estimates. Next slide. So compactor replacement, we'll talk about this one a little bit. The compactor is installed. We are running, and the Republic crew is really enjoying the machine. It is faster, it's more efficient, less breakdowns, with the caveat that there have been some issues with some of the hydraulic lines. The fittings have been leaking. We do have SSI out there today with their project manager and a tech to try to find the root cause analysis, or the root cause of that problem, and come up with a solution. So it's not a major leak at this point. There's just some dripping, but we didn't pay for a dripping compactor, so we're expecting them to rectify that issue. Right? We have not issued, because of that, it should say actually notice of acceptance. That's my typo there, not completion. And as soon as we get this issue resolved, and it's not leaking, we'll probably again want to be running for a good week or two without any leaks or issues before we're willing to issue that notice of acceptance, at which point the actual warranty will kick in. So we're done with this project. We're just wrapping it up. We're just waiting for the as-built drawings to issue the notice of acceptance on this one as well. But the new fire alarm system and the security system are running great. No more false alarms during the night. Or lots of calls disturbing the folks for no reason. So everybody's happy with it, and so is the fire marshal. That's the important part.
And Matt, there's actually a question from Tracy.
Oh,
thank you, Matt. Just a real quick question. I'm curious what the life expectancy of one of these compactors is at this point.
Well, I would say a number of factors play into that. I've talked with SSI about this, and they feel that those machines can last up to 15 years. Depends on the amount of cycling that happens on the machine. In some transfer stations, they've got multiple compactors, so they're not putting as much material through each individual one. So number of cycles, and then maintenance, how well the team stays up on the maintenance of the machines. So the one we just replaced, I think, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, that was installed in 2017, so we got eight years out of it.
And it was still functional, but it would break down a little more often than we would like. And a lot of that, this was what Matt was saying, was the amount of cycling, because they actually measure it like in feet and mile, in a number of feet, because that's how many times the pistons are running, and it was running more than it was initially expected. Just because our garbage volume were higher. So,
thank you.
You bet. So with that being said, on the compactor as well, we will be adding another project to the slide deck here for the next presentation, and that is a second compactor. So you're aware, as we'll get to that slide, with the reconfiguration, we'll be adding a second transfer station. We do need a second compactor. And right now we're exploring the possibility of having the old compactor completely refurbished, where they basically tear everything off of it down to just the steel frame, and they rebuild the entire thing with all brand new components. Generally save about $1.5 million doing it that way. And we have had the machine assessed, and they feel it is an excellent candidate for doing so. But we will be adding that as another capital project, separate from the actual reconfiguration. Okay, next slide, please. This is an ongoing project. We're trying to fit in when we can. Again, just some general upkeep with the toll houses and the office spaces. Next slide, please. And everybody's aware of the potential for what we call the South County Transfer Station. With the reconfiguration and the other projects going on, this one is really to be determined. So I have their timing, cost, scope of work, and schedule all to be determined. We really don't anticipate being able to really get going on that project, and probably until 2029, 2030, just given the magnitude of the reconfiguration project. We do have it in there in the current timeline because there's potential we might spend some money on some consulting and some studies leading up to that point. Next slide. Thank you. And then the big one, the reconfiguration. Where we're at right now, we do have the consultant on board for owner advisor construction management services. They're going to help us with our project review committee application. We're trying to make either the December or the January application deadline for the January or February meeting to seek approval to move forward with the alternative delivery method that we've chosen, which is progressive design build. We are bringing on outside legal counsel to assist us with the contracts as well that we will be putting together with design and build contractors. That outside counsel will have expertise in these types of contracts. So much more to come on this one. We're really fired up. We're getting moving on it pretty quick here, and a lot of good stuff's going to happen in the near future.
So Matt, can you tell me what progressive design build versus a standard project delivery would be?
Yeah, I'll try to make it short here. That's actually a pretty lengthy conversation, but in short, we typically, Public Works, use design bid build, right? Whereas we all go out and procure a designer separately under a separate contract. We have the design put together. We take that design and put together the scope of work and put that out to bid. And once it is bid, you typically go with the lowest bidder, and then you enter the build process. So those are two separate contracts, the design contract and the build contract, and it's all based on lowest bidder, right? And so the difference with an alternative delivery such as progressive design build is we will be able to, rather than do design bid build, we can procure the designer early on and bring the contractor as well. So we would likely hire a firm that would bring on a designer of our choice and then bring on a contractor that they typically work with, where we would also have say in choosing the subcontractors that they use. But the beauty of this delivery method is that you don't have to take the lowest cost product. You get the best value product in the end for the money that you're willing to spend. And you get to bring on the contractor early in the process, which allows the designer and the contractor and the county's team to all be talking from the very start, so that you end up with both a product that's better, but you also end up with a process that is better, right? Where the contractor can have input to the design and the phasing of the construction that makes more sense, particularly given the fact that we need to maintain business continuity and safety for everybody throughout the entire process. That
Great,
was
thank
in
you.
a nutshell, and I
Yeah.
hope that was helpful.
Good, thanks.
And here's your timeline. We will be refining this with the help of the consultant here in the next month. And that'll be an exciting point as well. We'll have a much clearer picture, but this is our best guess at the time. And then that's it, unless there's more questions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Matt. Anything, questions for Matt? All right, I guess you're up, Jeff.
All right, I got a few minutes left. I got two items I just want to bring up. First off is we had a public hearing on Monday, which Dave joined us with in front of the Board of County Commissioners. for the rate increase. It was inclusive not just of solid waste rates, but also included stormwater, noxious weeds, and wastewater rates. So we gave a Karen Weiss, our director, gave a presentation. We had two individuals that spoke, in favor of the rate increases. Dave spoke for the SWAC in favor, and the chair of the Noxious Weed Board spoke in favor of approving the rates increases as well. So the public hearing was closed. The final approval, the official final approval of that will be at the Board of County Commissioners on their meeting on December 16th, which is basically going to be approving not just that, but the whole budget. So that'll be their final approval of all the budget piece. So,
Jeff, can you explain what the rate changes were? Just for anybody that doesn't know.
For our tipping fee rate increases, yeah, I know
what you guys ended up finally asking for.
Well, the same one that they did have not changed since what was in front of you guys in February, the February, March, and the summer. So they remained no changes. I mean, there's a couple dozen different specific rates. I mean, as an overall aggregate for 26, they're having an aggregate of about 13.5% increase for 26, and then another 13.5% increase for 27. Again, that's as an aggregate, not on each specific line item. For example, organics probably, there we go. Organics saw the biggest bump, and that's because we were charging way, way, way less than even our cost on that one. So we were bleeding pretty heavily on the organics piece. So bringing that into line.
And is 26 your guys' biennium? That's when you guys are doing your budget?
Correct. Yeah. So 26, 27 is our upcoming biennium. That is great. And so the budget the board is approving is for those 2 years as well as these rates, and the other utilities did similarly. So along that line, as they'll be looking at again when we get to 28, 29. So in 27, we'll be looking at it again to see if any, what adjustments might be necessary. So that's moving forward, and we've had doing a lot of outreach, social media. We've had signs for months out of each of our facilities. We've been, if customers ask, we have little business cards that we've been handing out that have QR codes on them, where they can then take it and then jump to a website that has all the information, the rates, and all that sort of thing. So, but other than that, we had no public attend or comment, written comments or against the rates. So that's that. And one other one I also want to mention is, for those of you who recall Amanda Romero, who's our senior program manager, she has left employment in our group. So we have that position, senior program manager for solid waste, is actually out for recruitment right now. So if you're interested or know anybody that might be interested in that, we are recruiting actively for that. And Amanda, in that position, supervises our education and outreach group, our litter program group, and our solid waste planner. So anyway, she has moved on, but I thought I'd pass that on and put out the little pitch for, hey, know anybody who might be qualified or interested in working for us? That would be wonderful. And with that, I think got 1 minute left. I am gonna.
Great.
Unless anybody has any questions.
So, thank you. Any questions for Jeff? And I'm
right on time.
yeah, that's great. And just a reminder, send in your nominations for yourself or other people to be the chair starting, I think, March next year. So I have to vacate I'll be termed out. So don't all say it once, but definitely say that you want to have that duty if you're interested. Great. Anything else from anybody?
Didn't we have to draw straws last year, David?
It may be that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you
If it
all.
comes to that.
Again, not in January. We're skipping January, so we'll see you February next year.
Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful holidays, and see you all next year.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.